RT.
Okay, yeah, the RT60 equation. So the equation was formulated in 1898, so it's over a century old, but it's still used for its purpose, which is finding the reverberation time in a room. It was formulated by Wallace Clement Sabine in 1898, like I said. And it's used to calculate the amount of time it will take for a sound of a given frequency to attenuate by 60 decibels, which makes it effectively inaudible. Yeah, and this is the first thing really relating room size and something about audio. So that makes Sabine the first architectural acoustician, as Ten said in her presentation. And he was able to derive this formula using just a pipe organ and a stopwatch. And by changing the material that the sound was reflecting off of, he could use the stopwatch to see what the effect that change had on the sound was. So yeah, that's what it is. This is the equation here. K is a constant, and it's not always expressed as K. It could be anything. Usually they just write the number in there, actually, but I thought I'd leave it because it can be multiple things. So V is the volume of the room, and sigma SA is the total Sabine absorption of the room. Sigma because it's a sum, and I guess SA, they write it SA just because I guess that's short for Sabine. So yeah, in that version of the equation, there's only two variables: the volume, which is just simple length times width times height, and since that's a factor, larger volume means larger reverberation time, and then there's the other one, which is sigma SA, the total Sabine absorption of the room. So that's an addition of all of the areas of the surfaces multiplied by their respective Sabine absorption coefficients, which is a value between 0 and 1, representing the ratio of the magnitudes of a sound hitting and leaving a surface. So something having a Sabine absorption value of 1, a perfect absorber would be a window, because no sound will return, assuming there's nothing outside the window to reflect. And a perfect reflector would be painted concrete, which would have a Sabine absorption coefficient value of 0. Well, near to 0. It's kind of impossible to get all the way 0, at least with like common materials. They spend probably millions of whatever currency making special material walls for actual perfect reflectors, or perfect reflectors, sorry. But yeah, on the cheap end of the spectrum, all there is really is painted concrete and stuff like that. So yeah, so larger Sabine absorption means smaller reverberation time because more sound is being absorbed. Yeah, those are the variables. The one constant, which I've written as K, is 0.161 meters or 0.049 feet. The rest of the equation is built on logic, so naturally bigger room means more times, more absorption means less time. But this is just a constant, which makes those values work. And Sabine had to find this by looking at his results and seeing by what factor they were off. And he actually wrote an equation to determine it, because it'll be different based on the absorption coefficients in the room. So you actually have to derive it every time you're doing this for every separate situation. It won't be the same. Yeah, because it's dependent on the room temperature. Because in the formula to find K, this is metric. No, sorry, these are both metric. It can be expressed either way. c is the speed of sound, and that's dependent on temperature. So yeah, k will be different at different temperatures. And yeah, that's it for that. So yeah, this is an example. I've just done a room with length of 10, width of 20, and a height of 3 meters, which gives a volume of 600 meters cubed. The surfaces are going to be made of brick, and then I just put one wall as all glass, just keep it a little bit more simple. Otherwise, you'd have to sort of multiply in, you'd have to do a separate wall in the equation that was the size of the window, and then figure out the size of the wall remaining, having subtracted the window, and do a whole nother part of the equation for that, so I didn't think it was worth it. I just made a whole wall out of glass, and then I put the ceiling as just absorbing tile that they use in studios. It doesn't really make sense to have cheap brick and then a really expensive tile on the ceiling, but whatever. And yeah, so I did it at 1,000 hertz, and they have a coefficient of 0.04, 0.12, 0.07, and 0.56 respectively at 1,000 hertz. So you just plug those values in to find sigma SA, divide the volume by what you have found for sigma SA, and multiply it by K, which I've just done as 1.16. I just assumed that the room would be at 20 degrees centigrade, and you have the RT60 just by 2 calculations. It's pretty easy, really simple formula. Here's some resources for it. Like, there's a calculator here that can just do it for you if you have the right materials that are on this thing. It doesn't have everything. And then there's a Sabon absorption coefficient chart here, which we've seen tons of times. But this is a pretty good one. But yeah, that's all I have.
Okay.